Welcome to Very Honored Frater BT's Esoterinerd podcast, episode 53, in which Drew Wood and I interview Goldenstash. But first, Transformations and Footnotes. For those of you just tuning in, this is the segment in which I read my father's book, verse by verse, and then talk about it. Transformations by John Dan Reeb. Chapter 1, verse 14. The fiery ones were here, as always, last night. So were Flesh Place visitors. The Flesh Place visitors complained of a chill in the room, and the heat was on. They verified that for themselves. They asked to hear records of meditation chanting from Tibet, and glimmered with curiosity, entrenched in pretending that Tibet is someplace different from here and there, and entrenched, likewise, in forgetting that they had lived there about 700 of what they call years ago. The fiery ones are really gentle and patient. I know that they look in on us for their reasons. I know what those reasons are. You know what those reasons are. The others also know, and want to pretend they don't know a bit more. Hide and seek is not fun in and of itself. They invest fun in hide and seek. Verse 15. The fun investments of Flesh Place fear junkie hide and seekers lead them, from need to escape monotony, into creating contrasts which they enjoy not enjoying. Their capacity for creating what they call tragedy, significance, and violence appears at times virtually inexhaustible, doesn't it? The thing is that the cycle of their experience is complete, and it is limited, even as the exercise wheel of a hamster is complete and limited. Hamsters are simple in their needs. Flesh Place fear junkies, more complicated. Nevertheless, hamsters and Flesh Place fear junkies both come from need. And now for the footnotes. Fiery ones. Well, I automatically think Ashim, Hebrew for fiery ones, which is the choir of angels of Malkut, which may or may not be ghosts or ascended masters or a third order or something. I don't know. But I don't know what he's referring to. I get the feeling he's referring to the higher genius, or maybe not. Maybe just other kinds of beings coming in, checking in. I like this part about pretending that Tibet is someplace different from here and there. It reminds me of going to Japan and realizing it was a place just like L.A. You don't have to be in Tibet 1,000 years ago to enter into the kind of mystical realm that calls you. The fun investments of Flesh Place fear junkie hide and seekers. So by being asleep and separated from their true selves, they create a state of monotony which they need to break out of by going, for example, the wrong way on the tone scale. They're stuck at boredom and they don't know how to get up into interest, so they go down into anger. When I was 16 and I read the bit about the thing about the cycle of their experience being limited like the exercise wheel of a hamster, well, I was 16 and I was feeling superior because my dad was this brilliant guy who had just died and had written these words. And so I was thinking that the Flesh Place fear junkies were someone other than myself, and their experience is complete and limited, which makes them like hamsters. But now as I read it, I see that my experience, from birth to now, to speaking these words, to the ever-passing present which inevitably leads toward my death, is a cycle which is already complete, and it is limited. And as my dad points out, it has that in common with the exercise wheel of a hamster. The only thing I would additionally point out is it also has that in common with the Big Bang, generating all these galaxies, which eventually either dissipate into some big freeze Or maybe turns around and starts going the other way back into a big crunch. It's starting to seem more and more like that's not going to happen, though. But we shall see. If you've been in or around Boston in the last 12 years, you may already be familiar with tonight's guest. He is the artist behind Goldenstash. But first, let's bring in our co-host, Jonathan Drew Wood.
How's it going, everyone?
Good. Joe couldn't make it, and my buddy Drew here is available, and he also happens to be a Master Mason.
It works out.
Since Goldenstash, the character, is a Master Mason, but the artist behind Goldenstash is not. So thought it'd be interesting to bring in the perspective of someone who from Goldenstash's world. Well, it looks like he's ready for us to bring him in, so let's get to that interview, shall we? Greetings, Fredder. Welcome to the Esoterinerd podcast.
Holy smokes! Oh, technology is working.
It's all happening.
Oh,
Everything's
man.
falling into place.
The singularity.
So I wanted to introduce, Joe wasn't able to make it, but we have Drew Wood here.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Drew. How you doing?
Pleasure to meet you.
Very good to meet you.
Now, Drew is actually a Master Mason.
Oh, wow.
Or is Master Mason the right phrase? Or
Yeah, and a past master.
a past master and a master. So we've got a few different layers going on here, and then so we've got the Golden Dawn background. So this should be pretty good. I'm thinking it's an interesting dynamic.
So basically, you guys are about to school me.
No. No. Okay, well first let's talk about Goldenstash.
Oh, all right. Well, I mean, I think the first thing to do is to go over a bit of semantics.
Okay.
I when I contacted you, I was like, oh, I do graffiti, and there's much like various currents of spirituality. There's very currents of graffiti, and I fall into the street art category.
Okay.
And while in the eyes of the law, it's all graffiti, it's all vandalism.
Right.
It's a more new current, you could say.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of influence from the traditional graffiti, scene, and that's the modern graffiti scene. I don't want to go into it too much, and you can, you and your listeners can look into this, but it comes primarily from, the New York proto hip hop, and then it really, evolved and became something in the world of 80s hip hop.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just books and books upon books upon that, and I draw a lot of influence from that, but I would say I'm kind of a street artist in the modern sense, where I don't, I primarily don't use spray paint cans and markers to tag my name. I have kind of an icon I use instead of a name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's graffiti kind of evolves around, it became, it was just kids in New York basically that were writing their nickname along with what street number they were from in
right,
New York.
Yeah.
And there's like we could go on and go on and go on about the history of graffiti, but I don't want to bog us down in that by any means.
Could you quickly, you mentioned you fall into the category of street art. Could you quickly run down what other categories there are?
All right. So I mean, there's probably more than I even know, because it's it's a diverse world, and everybody does their own sort of thing.
Funk too. I can't keep up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. So I mean, I guess like towards the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of graffiti artists started using other mediums besides spray paint and markers to like do their thing, whatever that may be, whatever their purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I primarily use stickers, wheat paste, and wheat paste is basically you make posters and you make a paste using wheat and other. I kind of I throw a lot of glue and a lot of stuff to really make sure it's permanent in there. Um,
There's a rich history that goes back to actually Nazi Germany and probably
oh yeah,
before.
yeah, no, totally. It's definitely it takes in that propaganda poster
The anti-propaganda. It was
and yeah,
there was
yeah.
a guy who was running from the Nazis because he was putting up posters of Hitler, eating gold and swallowing bones, and
Wow.
that I'll send you a few links there.
Yeah, no,
I wish I knew the
I
guy's
love
name
to
offhand.
hear even the prior history to what I know.
Oh yeah. There was a guy at USC that was teaching a course, and he came to my school, and he was trying to recruit people to go around and act as guerrilla artist for him with a bucket of glue and a bunch of posters. And he was doing this like thick paint. He'd do caricatures of like Reagan. He has a few famous ones. He's been on a few covers of things. And then so people would print up, it'd say like playing apocalypse, and it'd be a picture of George W. looking goofy. And, and so a bunch of kids would go put them up all over. I wasn't 18, so I wasn't qualified to be one of his poets. Yeah.
Robbie Connell, Conal.
So, okay, so you were saying about 12 years ago, you had this idea. You were flipping through a book and...
Well, all right. So it's a bit of a long story.
Okay.
I've always been a creative person. I've always been I've always drawn and made stuff, and I come from a somewhat of a creative family. I would like to say as normal as we are sometimes, and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Where was it going? Okay, so I just happened to have a job where I could make stuff. And it wasn't a good paying job. And I don't want to go into it too much because I don't want to give away too much.
Of course.
But I could print stickers basically at this job.
Mhm.
And I kind of knew a little bit about graffiti and street art and the worlds and of that and that sort of thing. And I play music too. I have a lot of different endeavors and hobbies and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
I was being paid, your average, like just barely making it wage, and living in an expensive city, like like a lot of people. And I found the one advantage I had was I could print stuff for free, and that got me into thinking about, okay, what could I print? And I have a kind of a graphic design artistic background, and I go to a lot of bookstores and stuff like that, looking for weird stuff that I can photocopy and reproduce and incorporate into my artwork. And I found a book on 70s architecture,
Mhm.
and it wasn't so much on 70s architecture. It was a book for graphic design or architects specifically and drafters specifically that want to sub in humans into their architectural drawings.
Oh, I
So
see.
it had humans in very like different poses, a lot of beach poses, a lot of sports poses, oddly enough.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom
Um,
was an architect, so I know what you mean. The
yeah,
little
yeah,
drawings. There'd be
exactly. Like
trees and dogs
like
you'd throw in.
clip art, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and this book I got for like $2 at the Harvard bookstore, in Cambridge here. Um, I got it, it was in the used section. I searched, found it, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like the drawings are great. It's just wispy pencil line drawings, basically.
Mhm.
Um, and there's this like the artist that did, and I should find the book and tell you, but I don't have it handy, and it's beyond the point. Um, there's this reoccurring character that has this mustache, and he has a full head of hair, which I envy. Uh, uh, and he's always like in half the drawings he's like with a girl, or he's like playing guitar, or he's just like he's like in
He's
all
like
these
Mr.
luxurious sort of
70s swinger
positions.
guy.
Yeah, oh totally.
Yeah.
And like it was very a dated piece of clip art basically,
Yeah.
that I found, and I was like, oh, this is just amazing. And and so I just kind of started like taking some of the line drawings and then like outlining them, making them like more black and white and solid and stuff like that. And like I don't know. This is the weirdest thing. I don't know how I came up with gold. Like, it just came to me. It was just a natural sort of like, I found this thing and I wanted to make stuff.
You're like, who is this guy?
Who is this? Exactly. I was
And
exploring
what
the
sets him
character.
apart from the clip art? Maybe
Right.
a certain color
and
in the
everybody's
mustache.
just normal looking in it. And he's like, in half the photos he has sunglasses on, or not photos, but in half the drawings he
Right.
has sunglasses on and stuff like that. And it just caught my attention. And so I started redrawing it and incorporating it into artwork and reproducing it and making it into stickers and putting it around. And it was very obscure and very weird. And
Did he have a gold mustache yet?
And no, he had a gold. That was the thing from the beginning. It was a black and white image with a gold mustache, and
Nice.
I don't know what made me do that. I really don't. I thought it would be good, I think, to have a spot color to make the image kind of pop out,
Yeah.
But otherwise, I can't explain what, I really can't. And I think after a couple months, I've always been, kind of influenced. I don't take much stock in conspiracy theory. I don't believe in it much, but I'm interested in it.
Mhm.
And I like the whole Masonic, Illuminati. Yeah, I've always kind of liked that stuff, even though I know the actual at this point, I know the historical, point, bit about the Illuminati and what is it? Weishaupt? The Germans. Basically, it's always the Germans.
Bavarians or something.
The Bavaria, yeah, whatever. Hesse Castle and whatnot.
So conspiracy theories. You made him a Mason.
So I kind of made him a Mason, and that's I'm from New England. There's I don't know a lot. I don't know any Masons really around here, but I know it's very.
It's in the architecture. It's in the money.
Yeah, it's in the architecture. It's I know the whole. We've been here a while.
Yeah.
As much as California gets a huge reputation for having weirdos, we've been weirder longer.
Yeah. Well, and Boston, the Tea Party and all of that is very directly associated with the revolution.
Yeah, no, totally. Our founding fathers are, and all
bunch of Masons, yeah.
And they had a lot of backlash at different points in history because of that.
The William Morgan scandal in 18.
Yeah, and that gave, it's given a lot. That's why we still to this day have all these dumb, conspiracy theories about it. And it's like, okay,
well, that guys, that Pope. Which Pope was it that first had the Templars killed back in the day?
Yeah, exactly. Friday the 13th.
Yeah, 1307.
So I guess I kind of came up with this thing, and I haven't written a full manifesto out on this character yet. I've kind of I've disclosed it in interviews, and I've kind of put it into the artwork. I was trying to find the original digital file to send you, but it's been so long I can't find it right now. I had an image of Goldenstash with the Masonic compass, and instead of just being the G, it was a GS.
Oh, I actually I found that. I'm using it as part of the image that's going to be on this episode. Yeah. There's a G on one side and an S on the other.
I was a total poser at the time. I didn't know a lot about Masonry, really, besides what they tell you in pop culture.
Right.
I didn't realize it was the Grand Architect, for instance, and that sort of thing. But I've kind of since, been picking it up. I have some books now, and I'm reading about it, and it's very enlightening, basically. Yeah. More,
Does it add depth to the Goldenstash character the more you learn about Masonry?
There is certainly.
Can you give us an example? I'm just curious. Even if it's silly, something that popped into your mind when you were reading about Masonry and said, "Oh, maybe Goldenstash."
Well, I think all right. So, being a little bit of a weirdo, I think I attract weirdos, and that's a phenomenon that is not, that's no new phenomenon. But I have a lot of, and not people I know by name or anything, but people that come up to me on the street and say stuff to me, and they don't even know what I am or what I do or anything.
Right.
But someone in Boston years ago came up to me and was like talking about 33rd degrees and there's this whole lineage of Boston and Larry Bird, his number was 33 and, and like stuff like that, and that was actually prior to me starting Goldenstash, which I think that like
influence,
definitely influence, I guess, because it was just in one corner of my brain. And I always had that like, oh, there's all these weird, there's you can always make that's just humanity. You can always make a connection to anything, but there's a lot of connections you can make, and they're very inspiring. And I've been working a little bit on some numerology and that sort of stuff on a very amateur level. Goldenstash, if you do it, and I spell it phonetically, right? It's not like a mustache. It's like a literal stash of gold.
Right, like a stash of gold, double meaning.
Yeah, and that in simple English numerology, where A is 1 and Z is 26, that equals 124. And I was, just experimenting, and like the first three things that came to my mind equaled 124.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that is abundance of gold, the golden one, and infinite gold.
Wow.
And since then I haven't had any luck. But those were like the first trip.
So there's it's almost like there might be more to this.
Like, what the hell is going on here?
Like maybe there's actually this spirit that's hanging around Boston that's wanting to come through, that has some kind of depth behind it. I don't know. It's interesting.
I think the human mind is a powerful thing, and if you really work on creating something, it kind of creates itself. You start it and you let go, and it does its own thing.
Well, that inspires me to want to tell you a story. Back in '98, I was half asleep, half awake. I was going back and forth. I think I was waking up in the morning, and I had this intense vision, dream, and it just basically everything was symmetrical and it was beautiful, and it said pure heart. And then I woke up and I was like, whoa. But it also said Taurus Gemini cusp, and I was like, that's weird. And so and so then I went back to sleep, and I had this even more beautiful vision, but it was pure heart of gold.
Wow.
And it was golden.
I gotta write this down.
Yeah. Oh, well, it'll be in the episode.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But then it said Taurus Gemini cusp, and I was like, what's with the Taurus Gemini cusp? That's weird. And so then I went back to sleep again, and a third one. This sounds a little like Joseph Smith coming up with the Book of Mormon, but
yeah.
The fourth time it was golden heart of God. And it was like a very sort of Jesus-y, imagery of a golden heart. And, it was like Trent. It was, anyway. And also Taurus Gemini cusp. And then, okay. So I went back to sleep. I woke up, divine light of God, Taurus Gemini cusp. And so I was like, okay, that was really interesting. It was pretty intense. And so I got this star map up and I opened it up. And I think what it was talking about is that's right where Sirius and Orion are.
Oh, no crap.
Yeah.
I just censored myself. I was about to say something worse.
Well, on iTunes I can mark
explicit,
explicit or not. So far we're not.
Actually, I'm like, oh. That episode where you guys were drinking a little bit, I'm like, oh yeah, that's an explicit one.
Yeah, there were a lot of F-bombs in that last episode. I was like, just Scientology planet,
you're in the moment. You can't censor yourself all the time.
Yeah, it's how I was raised. My dad had a foul mouth. And so then I was always in trouble for it, So more recently, you said you've been starting to study a little bit of Golden Dawn stuff?
I mean, a little, I got into Hermeticism in general, I guess, like maybe 3 years ago. And, you find about Christian Rosenkreutz, and I'm like, holy crap, is this Goldenstash?
Exactly, right?
Yeah. And I think my biggest work I need to really work on and develop is I need to come up with a manifesto and post that around.
Yes, we of the Golden Stash do hereby proclaim ourselves as.
Exactly.
Well, they did say he had a Dutch complexion in the Fama Fraternitatis.
Oh
So
yeah?
the blondness of Golden Stash.
Yeah. And I came up with the name. I mean, this was like probably, within the first couple. I think I first. All right. So for chronological purposes, I think I first started posting Golden Stash in about 2004.
Uh-huh.
But it was I didn't have a theology around it yet at all. It was just like, I just got this thing and I'm gonna do it. And then in about a year, I had a buddy, and he's a weirdo just like me.
Uh-huh.
And he started like being like, you gotta like really take this to the next level and come up with something about it. And I think he even came up with the name Chadwick because he thought it was a very like blue blood sounding name.
Yeah.
And I came up with Gildenstashing because I just thought it sounded. I mean, first it's like Germanic sounding, and then Gilden, gold, Stashin, mustache.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is his real name, basically.
Right.
And Golden Stash is kind of the magical name almost.
I see. That's what they call him around the street.
Yeah, exactly.
So what does his middle initial stand for, or is it anything?
Oh, very good question. And this is something that I don't disclose often because it doesn't. I mean, it's more for humor than anything, and that is wealthy.
Oh. So he had an ancestor who stashed some gold.
Yeah, I mean the thing, and this is something I need to develop in the actual manifesto is that his family are kind of gold barons. They've cornered the gold industry, and in that sense, they kind of rule the world.
Oh, I see. This might be my friend Martin up in Quebec.
Yeah.
When you do his manifesto, one of the things that is a great conspiracy theory piece that you can add in there is the Rennes le Chateau. Have you heard about that?
Rennes le Chateau. No.
Chateau Rennes. Maybe I'm not saying it correctly. It's this chapel in France that is
Rien de Chateau.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
And it's got all kinds of stuff surrounding it because there's just so many quirky things about it. But, this conspiracy theory is that the guy who was the priest there who built it just suddenly came across all this money. And they're thinking that it was hidden in one of the, podiums or something. It's interesting. But that, sudden wealth kind of theme.
Ah.
Yeah, there was one point when I was a budding magician, my mom wanted, more money, of course. And so she was saying, could you do some magic? And so I said, sure. And back then I would mostly improvise, and I had all these different things. And I was mixing stuff together and invoking things. And I put it in a little pouch, and I said, put this in your purse, and you'll make a lot more money. And so she put it in her purse, and then she got 2 job offers, and she already had a job.
Wow.
And so she started working 3 jobs, and so she was exhausted, but she was making all this money. So she came back in and she gave it back to me. Yeah, she gave it back to me and said, could you fix it so I don't have to, work so hard? So I did some little fiddling with it, and I gave it back to her, and I said, okay. And then, unrelated or related, I don't know. But a couple days later, we were out at my grandparents' house, and there was this safe, and my mom was saying, I guess we're going to have to hire a safe cracker. And I was like, no, we're not going to have to, because from the time I was 3 years old, my grandfather Edward, who was Dutch also, he would have me open the safe. He'd say, I forgot how to open the safe. Could you open it for me? And then so for all those years, from the time I was 3 until I was 10, he was training me to open the safe for that moment when I would be opening the safe for my mom. And sure enough, there was a bunch of gold in it. So my mom ended up giving a bunch of it to the temple and, help pay the rent for a few months. And
yeah. But I think you were trying to get at my personal esoteric practices.
Oh yeah, I mean, I assume that this has prompted a little bit of
Yeah, no, it's prompted a lot of inner, contemplation, and I'm neurotic in the most positive sense. I think too much
Yeah.
sometimes.
It's almost like when you do. I always tell people when they ask me about black magic is that it affects the person doing it more than anyone. So I mean, by bringing in that kind of dark energy to do the spell, you're
Right.
screwing yourself
You're
up.
really screwed. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So
Three
if you're
times over, as
bringing
they
in
say.
something mysterious and it's like, who is this Goldenstash? Well, they say he's a Mason. He's got a golden mustache, and like it doesn't affect anyone more than the artist himself.
Right, totally. Like
Nobody wonders more than the person putting it up there.
yeah. I will say, however, though, there is, and I don't go out like I used to on crazy nights where I would, and this is a parallel to magic sometimes, is I would get up at odd hours of the night to go out when no one's around and perform my craft. And I don't do that as much. I do a lot of daylight working, you could say.
Just go ahead and do it. Well, no one's looking.
I just go, yeah, well, also, the thing in the daylight is that nobody really notices as much because they're worried about their dumb day life.
Right.
They're worried about oh my God, I forgot my notebook. They're worried about the flesh-paced fear junkies. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's, oh my God, thank you for, you're doing a great service to your father, and more importantly, to your father's thinking.
Oh, thank you.
And, yeah, I love the flesh place fear junkies. I might not be able to say it, but I love it.
It takes practice. Yeah. Yeah, it took me a while the other day. I was trying to get myself to say it catalyzes certain decarboxylation reactions. And it took a few tries.
What?
I was talking about
again?
tryptophan decarboxylase is an enzyme that catalyzes certain decarboxylation reactions. It creates tryptamine, and then another enzyme comes along and methylates it twice, and that's how we produce dimethyltryptamine in the brain.
Wow.
Check out on Gwydion's Astral podcast. It's a sister podcast to this one. One of my
I've been getting caught up.
Gwydion's another personality. So
yeah, no, you do a lot of stuff. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Are any of us? What? Sure,
Yeah,
why?
it's
We
the
just
artist
do.
thing. Yeah, there was a while where, it's kind of funny actually. I'm interviewing you so I can talk about myself. No,
No, are we all?
I got to a certain level in the order that I was in called Portal, which is like the spirit grade, and you're like
I'm vaguely familiar with the grade structures.
You're like up against the veil. They won't let you see inside too much. They'll only let you see what they want you to see. And so it's this sort of nice time where you have the most training that you will ever have had while still being relatively innocent.
Ah.
And so it was a nice time. I wrote all my best poetry. It was 1999. And
oh, good year.
Yeah.
Treated like it's 1999.
An innocent year.
Yeah. But my art sucked. I mean, at a certain point, like I wrote all my best poetry, but it was all very symmetrical, and everything I was painting was like the sun in different ways. And so it took finally getting across the veil and getting totally fucked up by what was going on the other side to make me into an artist again. And so Gwydion came about a year into 5=6.
Ah.
And suddenly I started writing this like intense revolutionary poetry. Then I kind of got sidetracked, and then it went a different direction, but other people ran with it, so it was good.
Wow. Yeah, no, I understand that. I mean, obviously, in certain workings, you need a authority figure, but in most part, you really fucking don't.
Yeah, and it's nice when it can just be a role and not an actual.
Yeah, I mean, it's
maintains outside the temple. Where
yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
I want pizza. God damn it, we're having pizza tonight. Like no, you get to be Hierophant, but that's it. Like. The rest is going
But
to be
that's what makes it so sacred.
yeah.
The fact that you're comfortable with that, in that setting.
Yeah, it's dated, surely. It's a
Oh yeah.
script, but you're saying, I command you to go do this. I mean, who in this day and age would tolerate someone saying, I command you to anything?
I don't know. I grew up. My mother was a good Catholic lady, and I grew up in a Catholic church, early on. So I kind of understand
They did the
that.
commanding. Nice.
Yeah. And I mean, I was often very bored, and no offense to any Christians or Catholics listening, but
Well, I'm sure no one would.
No, it's pretty
fault you for
boring. You're
saying-
right.
Yeah,
that is the worst thing. Could they just instead of Alleluia, couldn't they just do Inagata Devita? Jeez.
But it's interesting because then if you have someone who's never been to one ever, and you put them in there and they're seeing all this stuff, the incense, the weird outfits, standing and sitting and standing, a big crucified guy, they're like, what the fuck is this?
Total immersion.
Meanwhile, there's an 8-year-old going, ugh, boring. I'm so tired of sitting here staring at the dead man. It's boring. I'd rather be playing video games.
I think if they just drank the wine at the beginning, everything would be a different experience.
Yeah, and with double dosage, I think.
Exactly.
Oh.
And then there's just a lot of this is slightly off, but there's so many fundamentalist idiots that the Jews killed Jesus, and they're like, no, Pontius Pilate killed Jesus. He was a Roman.
The Romans love to blame it on Judas and that whole Constantinian anti-Semitism thing.
Oh man, it's bad.
Luke was a Roman, and he was the one who brought in the pagan nativity scene, and if I'm not mistaken, he had more of a spin about emphasis on Pontius Pilate washing his hands and stuff like that. I don't know. It's been a while since I really did it.
Yeah. I mean, it's another wormhole of theology to look into.
Yeah. So back to Goldenstash, though. So is he living in the 70s?
I mean, I guess he's kind of eternal in that sense. It's not the 70s now. I'm creating it now. I think I have a love of the aesthetics of that age.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to bring that into my work, but
he's wearing the mustache like it's normal.
I think honestly, I think he's a master alchemist, and I think he has discovered the Philosopher's Stone and the elixir of life, so he's eternal.
Hence the stash of gold.
Yeah, no, he can turn anything into gold if he really wants to. If he doesn't care about inflation so much.
One thing I was kind of curious about is that it doesn't have to be, but a lot of times art is a reflection or kind of a cross balance for what's going on with us when we create something. What would you say this would kind of be a reflection of where you were at, or did it just kind of come into being on its own? I mean, what's your take
how
on
to
that?
answer this?
Okay.
Oh, cool.
I think I was early 20s, and maybe 20, 21 when I started coming up. Maybe 22 even when I started. But I was realizing how mortal this existence is, at least, and I needed to create something that was bigger than me personally, that would create a legacy, create a anchor to tie me down. I don't know.
Maybe he had all the stuff that you were struggling to have, and which includes maybe the girl, the money, the immortality.
Yeah, no.
The mustache that he can get away with somehow.
Thankfully, I'm not a rich man by any means.
Well,
But
probably, I
I
imagine when you were in your early 20s, I mean, everybody's.
yeah, exactly.
Maybe this was like a talisman that maybe helped to focus what it was that you wanted and then resulted in you having more of those things now.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, but that's why you get into rock and roll. That's why you get into art. I mean, you want the girl, you want money, and even if you don't admit to it, And I'm not rich. I'm
But
not.
he also has the esoteric knowledge.
And I've always wanted to know more. I
Yeah,
don't know about what, but I've always wanted to know more.
you got a good healthy brain. That sounds like
I hope so. Knock on wood here.
Brains want more.
I've tested it once or twice, and I'm a little afraid to test it too many more times. But I have nothing to complain about. I've had a good life, and I will knock on wood, will have a halfway decent life because I appreciate the beauty and the sadness, and I appreciate the moments when I'm like not happy and I'm stressed out and I'm pissed off, and which that's a that's like 30-40% of your time sometimes.
Yeah.
And but otherwise I'm a very anybody that knows me knows I have a smile on my face, and maybe it's just because I smoke too much weed, but but
it does help.
It does help. It does help. A tiny bit of self-medication helps.
Yeah. I think it goes along with this crazy civilization that we have,
We are so, and that's my thesis. Like, yeah. As crazy as we are, and stuff, we're nothing as crazy as society.
Yeah.
Like, society is nuts. The things we justify for progress.
Yeah. I spent some time in a lot of ways trying to walk the walk and talk the talk of what society, quote unquote, seemed to want me to do. And, I went nuts, and I had to break out. And
yeah, no, I'm dealing with that currently a little bit. I don't always eat the best and take care of myself the best, and the older you get, the more you feel it, and working all the time and paying your bills and all the stress that life gives to anyone. Not just I'm not saying like, oh, I'm so special.
No, we're all in this together.
We're all in this. We
like
all
Bernie
have
Sanders
the same
says.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's why obviously like a practice like yoga is so beneficial, and I don't have a strict sort of thing, and I haven't practiced, and I don't know a lot about that stuff, but I do find when I do stuff, because I have some digestion problems, I feel that much better both physically and emotionally, and it's all connected. I had to work myself like my 20s. I just partied and had a good time. I was working and not I'm not saying I was a slacker by any means, but I didn't take care of myself as good, because you're in your 20s, your body's at its best, and you can just do whatever and party and all the time, and wake up and go to work and do it all over again, and I feel the results of that now, and where was I going? I don't even know where I was going with that idea exactly, but so I have a bit of a digestion problem, and it was diagnosed when I was like 20, 21, and what was happening at the time was I was having intense amounts of heartburn and indigestion, nonstop, and I was, my parents, they're pretty common sense people, and they're like, you're in your 20s, there's nothing wrong with you, and stuff like that, for the, like, when it started happening on a regular basis, and I would wake up, eventually it got so bad, I would wake up and I would have heartburn, and I would go to sleep and I would still have heartburn, and it wouldn't stop, and eventually I started having panic fits, which the only thing I can kind of relate it to is it's almost like a when you really have them bad, it's like a near-death experience, even though you're not dying. You feel like you're dying. You kind of hallucinate a little bit, not in like you're seeing shapes and geometric designs, but you feel you're in hell and you're dead, you're gone. And that was something that really woke me up to the fragility of my mental state, basically, and all of our mental states for that matter. The fact that just feeling bad could make you feel so much worse. I was diagnosed. Eventually, I saw a doctor. I got an endoscopy. I was diagnosed with a hiatal hernia, which is not like a what people normally think of like a slip disc hernia.
No.
It's basically my stomach lining is protruding a little bit through my esophageal sphincter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the little butthole that closes up and down in
right, keeps the gas from coming back up.
Yeah, it doesn't do that so good. And so I mean, even now I have problems with it. I've made dietary changes, and I try not to eat late, and it certainly helps. I drink a little bit too much, and that I need to work on. Not too much, but just drinking in general hurts.
Right. At all.
At all. Yeah. No. But the problem, and this is, don't get me wrong. I love my Western medicine, and it's helped me a lot. But I was overprescribed for a long time, which is a problem that a lot of people have in this country. Is we're overprescribed on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it's painkillers or whatnot. I was, luckily I wasn't in that camp, but I was prescribed to eventually became over the counter, and it's now over the counter.
Omeprazole, you mean, Prilosec?
Yeah. It's considered a proton pump inhibitor, which it makes your stomach not pump out the acids that it does.
Right.
And it's great for immediate, or for, if you're hurting for a couple days, you take that and your stomach doesn't pump acid and you feel better. But what started to happen was things weren't digesting normally in my stomach. And I started feeling like just immense amounts of pain from, gastrointestinal stuff. And it was tough getting off of it because I would get off it and I would have heartburn. And, it's a balancing act. Life is just like life. Life is a balancing act. And I'm now in a much better place. My flora and fauna in my intestines feels a lot better these days.
That's
not
good.
not perfect, but a lot better.
Yeah.
No, I know what you're talking about. I mean, aside from the hernia, I was diagnosed with GERD about 10 years ago.
Yeah. No, they that's what they diagnosed me with. They were like, it's GERD caused by this.
It's horrible, man. I feel you. I really do.
Yeah. It's miserable because there's no good cure. I mean, they said, oh, we could do surgery, but there's no guarantee it's gonna actually work, and if it does work, it'll give out in a year or two, and it's very invasive, So it's like you really gotta work on. It's kind of like celiacs. You gotta kind of work on changing your life, and I haven't the best. I've done a bit. And it's better than nothing, and I got to keep going. But that's enough about that boring stuff.
Well, they say that if you can live till 2040, then you can probably live another 200 years.
Yeah.
As long as you are jacked into whatever the equivalent of the first world is by then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2016 now, 2040. Yeah, I don't think realistically that in 24 years we're going to not have such a disparity between rich and poor.
Yeah, no.
It's not realistic. Unless AI takes over and just redoes everybody's bank account. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I do think that we're kind of disguising stuff on the and I'm not an economist. I'm not an economist. I don't know. Like I feel like dumb really talking about this stuff, but from a gut level, it feels like so like the Republicans kind of like blame, the lagging economy on immigrants. The Democrats tend to blame it more on jobs going overseas. I mean, they all blame stuff on the same, there's gray areas. But I see it, it's like technology is really the new thing that's taking over jobs, and you really can't stop that.
Right.
you know, in another 10 years, we're not going to have, I mean, I think in another 10, 15 years, we're not going to have deliveries done by people with all these the Google car and stuff, and or at least on a freight level, um,
Well, that
because
and
that,
countries that are becoming industrialized now are very shortly going to be
yeah, no, they're behind. They're behind, and we bitch at them because they're polluting.
right, but they're going to be metropolises in a minute, like in a
Yeah,
couple
yeah,
decades.
yeah. So it's, I mean, we live in a world of hypocrisy and all that good stuff, and I don't know what to make of it exactly, but I have positivity, I have hope,
Yeah,
because otherwise I'd be done by now. I'd be gone. Um, but I have hope that the human race can kind of figure something out at least. Another band-aid for another 100 years, or and then we'll come up with another band-aid, and
yeah.
I mean, hopefully we'll transcend at some point, but I
Maybe once the human race, transcends and goes to the next level, then we'll look back fondly on
yeah, oh yeah.
the times that we were struggling and falling over ourselves and getting it
Be like,
wrong.
oh, racism, wasn't that
Remember
silly?
racism? Yeah, or wars? Huh. Maybe,
Yeah,
hopefully.
maybe. I hope in my dreams. I'm
Yeah.
not a lucid dreamer. I've heard you talk about lucid dreaming, and
I,
but I do have some
when I stop
pretty
smoking
wild
pot,
dreams.
I have wild dreams. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some pretty wild dreams.
Have you
I
had any lately?
I mean, yes, nothing crazy profound.
What was the most profound that you
I mean,
had?
I mean, all right. I'm gonna just tell you the most profound dream I've ever had,
Cool.
and this is something that definitely has shaped me as a person. It happened when I was probably about 16, 17, probably about 17, I would say.
Mhm.
When you're kind of maturing and kind of having a bigger worldview and that sort of thing, and stop being such a sociopath kid. Uh,
Yeah.
um, so I was at Berkeley School of Music. It's a college in Boston.
Okay.
It's a music school, pretty famous, big music school college thing. I did their summer program when I was like a 17-year-old, and you stay there for like 4 or 5 weeks, and you live in the dorms in Boston. And I was a suburban yokel at that point.
Hmm.
I came to Boston a lot because I was like really into punk rock, and there was a lot of punk rock shows growing up in Boston, obviously. But living in Boston was a new experience, and it was great. It was a fun time. I took a lot from that. But one night while I was there, I had a dream, and I will preface this dream by saying I had no idea who H.P. Lovecraft was at the time. Never heard of him. Never heard of him. And I had this dream where I knew I was walking around in a small New England college town in the dream. That was the first thing I just knew. And I'm walking around, and I'm like walking towards the dormitory where I'm staying in the dream, and I get to it, and it's in the bottom of a valley that is flooded. And I'm like just shocked. I'm like, why is my dorm flooded? And I'm still like getting a lot of meaning from this image, but the chimney was just sticking out of the water and still puffing smoke out of it. And so like there's still a fire in the hearth down below in the water, but there's still a fire, smoke coming up out of the water above. And in the dream I'm
Good
just like,
shit.
okay, whatever, weird thing. Let's keep going. And I keep going on my walk, and I get to it's like kind of like a center of town in a very New England sense, a very small city New England sense of circle with a kind of an old, colonial look to it and stuff like that. And I get to a giant statue of just a horrific looking beast with tentacles coming out of its mouth. And I mean, cut it short, it was Cthulhu, or however you pronounce it
Right.
in the long run. I didn't know it at the time, but it was Cthulhu. It was.
Cthulhu?
And Cthulhu?
Yeah. Yeah,
I've always heard Cthulhu.
Yeah.
I think it's Hulu, and they now give us television shows.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So I see this thing, and I'm like, oh my god, what the, in the dream, I'm like, it just like it's one of those things that just sticks to your consciousness, and like you'll never forget it. And all of a sudden, a family, I think it was like, father, mother, daughter, son, come up to me, and the daughter passes me a balloon. I think that's Malkut, maybe passing me the balloon, and they pass me the balloon, and the balloon rubs up against the statue as they're passing it to me, and they say, "This is more than you and I can understand or comprehend. This is beyond human comprehension," basically, which is a big part of, I think, Lovecraft's writing. Basically, it's beyond us, and it started at that point. It almost felt like a crazy acid trip in the dream. Like there was too many thoughts coming in, and I was being overcome by stuff. And basically, the next thing I remember is the name H.P. Lovecraft, and I started saying it in my dream, like a mantra, like H.P. Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft. And I woke up and I was in a bunk, and I hit my head on the ceiling, and I was like, H.P. Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft. And maybe somebody was just reading his books down another hallway or something, and maybe it just transferred into my mind at that time. But it spooked me, and I immediately found out who H.P. Lovecraft was, and I was like, this is fucked. Like this stuff from my dream is in his writing. He writes about dreams? Like, what?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's the biggest. That's like one of the weirdest things that's always stayed with me. And I always think about, and I tell people, and they're like, "Oh, get out."
That reminds me of an experience I had with Season Cole in a previous episode. I kind of mentioned it before, but I'll tell the quick version where
I actually just replay, because I've been up on my Esoterinerd. I just listened to that the other day, actually.
Where she gave me a book and a dream, and it turned out it was Jodorowsky talking about dreams and your own personal shamanic experience. Like, what?
By the way, I was thinking, like, somebody, I mean, it would probably end up corny, but if somebody ever makes a biopic about the original Golden Dawn, it should be Jodorowsky.
Oh yeah, totally.
That's one of the things that drew me to esotericism. All the weirdo, Algernon Blackwood,
Yeah.
That really was like, okay, there's something here.
The cat people. I think a lot of people haven't read Algernon. He got up to Practicus, if I understand correctly, in the original Golden Dawn. And so he was writing at a time like before Crowley had published anything. Like when
right.
And so he was like vaguely alluding to, like, sometimes in apartments there'll be a man who might be a big man with a beard who's a language specialist, and he'll be burning incense and walking around in funny ways and intoning foreign languages. Isn't that weird? Now it's like, yeah, we know. We know.
But it's that might be. That makes you feel weird.
Yeah. It's interesting though. I mean, I guess it's the equivalent of like a steampunk type concept, or like, the future from the point of view of the 50s, or the future from the point of view of the 80s, looking at Back to the Future 2, like going into all these like subtle layers of consciousness. Like, what is it like to be a Victorian British person?
Yeah.
Does this magic? That's interesting.
And speaking of your dream, at what point did you finally go, oh, that's what that was about? Where it kind of, there's a singularity between your life and your dream, where you're like, okay, or did that ever happen for you?
All right, let me see if I understand what you're saying. Like, when did I realize that was like very important in my life? Or you're
Well,
saying like, where did I like realize? Like, did I like? I mean, because like honestly, at the time I didn't realize who H.P. Lovecraft was at all, and I had to find that out afterwards.
Mhm.
Right. Mhm.
And I did very quickly because it was such a powerful dream.
Yeah.
I immediately went to Barnes and Nobles, which which was still a thing back then, if they are still now, and you know, found a book and was like, oh my, you know, I blew my mind for a second time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you did preface it. You were saying that you know, it's maybe changed you, or is it just because of your interest
Oh,
in
big influence.
esoteric, or how
I
it
mean,
influenced you?
that's I think it's something that started me down the path of knowing that there's more than just
Something.
our objective realities, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
You know, whether you want to be like, oh, esoteric or not, you know, there's, you know, and or want to take a more scientific look at it. You know, that was like, oh, I mean, even more than an acid trip or anything like that. It was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're small.
I guess my when I consult my inner skeptic, it's still no less magical. I mean, really, you know, when someone uses the word supernatural, it implies that there's anything above natural.
Right. No, it's so silly, and that's just the world we live in, where we've separated science from esoterics, basically.
But it could just as easily have been that out of the corner of your eye once you saw
Maybe
the cover
no, I'm
of
not.
a
I'm not.
Lovecraft
I
book.
don't deny that at all.
But then your subconscious has been like working on it and working
Chewing
on it
on
and
it.
going, what was that? What that was really
Just
interesting.
chewing on that, yeah.
And keyed in and was able to tap into other things that were related and then presented it all to you at once in a way that made you go, I gotta look into this.
Yeah. No,
Which is still no less magical to me.
That's an amazing way to say exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
I run into people in. I mean, I think that by saying esoteric it kind of helps to clarify that this is sort of a what used to be called left brain, you know, approach toward esotericism. But I get people from a right brain, you know, perspective all the time who get frustrated at me that I categorize things or that I want to explain things in scientific terms.
I mean, just to give you a little more background on me too, I take my pursuits seriously, but I don't take myself seriously. You
Nice.
know, I keep a sense of humor with everything, and I don't try to take anything as literal all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you've gotten across on your podcast before.
What are some of your favorite episodes?
I mean, I do love the ones where you talk to your father's old friends and stuff like that. That's really, you know, and I mean, your father, you know, sounds like he was, you know, really onto something there. And I mean, I love the Hermetic Hour, so I love the Poke Runyon episode.
Oh yeah, nice.
You know, I'm a bit of a psychedelic hipster nerd, so I love people that have been kicking around for a while, you know?
Yeah.
All the Aquarians, I mean, geez, holy smokes.
Yeah, they're cool. I'm going to have Z back on with Enoch soon.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm like, truly, I am humbled to be talking to you right now in a certain sense. Yeah, no, totally. We're not worthy, as Wayne and Garth would say. But you know, that's me just keeping sense of humor with it. You know, I love to laugh. Laughter is the key to life, for sure. And not like, you know, that's the only reason why we all haven't killed ourselves at this point.
Yeah.
Is because we do see the light in life and the folly of it all.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it was also great hearing the past couple episodes where you had the Soars from New England. That was great. I can't remember. I'm blanking on the name.
Scarlet Magdalene.
She was the Bostonian.
Yeah.
And then you were talking to
Lori,
a card reader from Burlington, which was really cool to hear.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I mean, Burlington, I love Vermont in general is great. I mean, everybody, even if they don't look like it, they're all a hippie at heart.
Yeah,
I mean, they have Bernie Sanders, you know.
that's true.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're basically Canada up there.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. And I didn't always appreciate New England growing up, but I do now as an adult.
There's a certain number of folds that has to happen in the brain before certain things become interesting.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was a bored high school kid that drew too much and didn't listen enough, but now here I am and I know things, surprisingly enough.
My wife's uncle is introducing this dog character that's famous in Israel. Well, long story short, it's becoming an anime. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, wow.
But I was just imagining Goldenstash as a character in a sort of 80s style cartoon, and then wondering
Well,
what kind of shenanigans he might get into, or where he lives, or
One thing I'm firm about is Golden Stash is non-dogmatic. I encourage people to come up with their own mythologies about it, like draw your own, draw your own conclusions. It's a weird thing that I put up everywhere. So, and I haven't really put out the message yet, besides a couple interviews and some artwork, hidden sort
yeah.
of. It's not spelled out for people.
He reminds me a little bit of the most interesting man in the world.
I'm glad you know who that is because I was looking at your photos of Andrew De Pisano.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, that's the most interesting man in the world.
One of my students,
That's him.
one of my yoga students is in like 15 of those interesting man in the world ads.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And he's that guy. I think I read something about him quickly. He's a Vermonter.
Nice.
I think.
he had
The actor.
his supposedly his last one where he's going to go to Mars forever. Did you see that one? He got in a spaceship.
I don't know if I have.
I wouldn't be surprised if they bring him back though. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Great marketing scheme.
yeah.
Frauder, there was one thing I was dying to ask you, which was, is there any influence from Goldstein, the guy, the opposite of Big Brother in the novel 1984, population whatsoever, and hidden influence that you might?
That's very good. I haven't read 1984 since like high school or middle school, even probably. I find, obviously that's an amazing novel, and I find a lot of influence from it, but I didn't even make that connection.
Interesting.
Just the kind of the way that he's plastered on things.
You just dog-eared a book for me.
Cool.
I mean, I can see some parallels. I just wondered maybe if they exist, and if they do, if you're aware of them, but maybe not.
Now there's an image of Goldenstash, and he's holding a lady, and it says Golden behind him and Stash kind of behind her, and there's like an olive branch or two olive.
Yeah.
In a very sort of old style Masonic,
Yeah.
like back into the dollar bill kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, I always took a lot of like aesthetic influence from just old woodblock printing sort of stuff, and I mean, you can go down the wormhole of looking at old alchemic drawings and that sort of stuff, and I do find a lot of influence from that, as well as a lot of modern, clip art and magazines and popular science and diagrams and maps and whatnot.
There's another one where you just see his face, and there's the G clef, and then there's the G in the Masonic symbol and the S on the right, but then there's this frame, this like elaborate frame around him.
I'm trying to imagine it, but I mean, I've taken a lot of stuff from kind of Victorian clip art books. Okay. And
yeah, it had that feel.
Just ornamentation. I love ornamentation.
Yeah.
I used to play classical guitar. I don't really practice as much as these days, but I used to love Baroque music. I used to play Bach, concertos all the time. And I take a certain influence from that flourish of, meow.
Is there anything we can look forward to with Goldenstash?
Well,
Do you have any
I
goals?
guess one thing that I should say is I have been kind of not slacking, but preparing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And really, I mean, as a fine artist, I feel like I'm very at the beginning of the path, just like as esoterics go. I'm very at the beginning of my self-awareness and just doing the craft the right way, the way I approve and the way I see it. I'm still, I do something and a month later I hate it, sort of, but it's getting better. I do feel like I'm getting somewhere, and I have been for years now. And this is where I was going with this, is kind of preparing an art book, and that's something I hope to get out, hopefully by the end of the summer. It's the sort of thing I've been working on for a long time, and I get 2 pages done and I throw 1 page out. But I have a good body of work now that I haven't shown anybody. That graphic I prepared for my Instagram is kind of an enlargement of one that I altered. And yeah, no, I'm never not working. I might get a little distracted by mundane life here and there, but I got a lot coming, and I think it's, I'm hoping I'll have this self-published book ready by the end of the summer, and I'll definitely send you one.
Nice. Now, is this going to be anonymous?
That's the thing that I feel the best about right now, I guess.
Is this going to be anonymous, the Goldenstash stuff, or is this separate stuff?
It'll be a Goldenstash booklet of art.
Cool.
I have a lot of work. It has nothing. The artwork itself doesn't deal necessarily with the iconography of Goldenstash, but it is. It's my own personal art, and I do attach it to that name.
Now, my co-host, when we first were sitting down, he was saying, now, what are we going to call him on the air? And I was like, well, I'm just going to call him Frater. But that raises an interesting point. Are you Goldenstash?
To tell you the truth, I'm not even sure. I get confused all the time. And I think when you can create a character that is that much, a part of you, you do get confused sometimes. Yeah. And I don't know. I just don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess I'll say my name BT is son of Tiferet, which is the golden sphere on the tree of life, the heart of the tree of life, the heart of God. Christ,
totally.
All that. So I'd be a totally arrogant ass if I were to walk around calling myself the son of Tiferet, and yet I do. I call myself. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to call you Goldenstash.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Frater GS, Goldenstash.
Frater, I mean, and I have been using that as my magical name in my daily practices.
This is something we aspire to, not necessarily something we are by default.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't communed with my guardian angel and that sort of thing, but there's another self that I communicate with.
How's that?
In my esoteric practices, I haven't made communication with the HGA, as you would say.
I've never been more confused about all that than I am now.
Yeah, I mean,
when I was 16,
I make communications, but I don't know what they're with.
Yeah,
I don't know what to. When I meditate,
I'm sure if
I
it's
get
an
voices.
MRI machine. If you look at yourself on an MRI machine, I'm sure when one of the voices gets going, part of your brain lights up. I mean, it's but we identify ourselves if we identify ourselves with the emotional body in the hypothalamus and with the fear instinct, the survival body in those almond shaped things, then anything that comes from the neocortex is going to sound like an archangel with this great wisdom, but it's not. Yeah. It's human thought. It's a very sophisticated kind of thought, and eventually I realized that this whole back and forth was between me, the Lord help me, and me, the okay, here's what you got to do: stop worrying about that and let her be. And I'm
it's a mediator.
Yeah, and I mean, like, not to knock it, and again, not to take away any sacredness from it, but sure, if you have angels living in your head and they're helpful, that's great. I mean, I've run into people who had angels that were telling them to stab their babies, and that's not.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I can't make a blanket statement that it's good to hear voices. I'm just grateful that I don't. I mean, the whole thing where I go in and out of different characters, those are my other voices, but they're all me. You know, I mean,
Right.
I pretend that they're different
They're
people.
all the inner voice.
Yeah.
That you can connect to yourself.
Yeah, but I mean, people sometimes, and it's always been this way. Even my dad, when I was young, would say, "I can't believe that you're the same person that 5 minutes ago I was having this other kind of conversation with." You know, like so that people hear something come out of my mouth and go, "Oh my
Wow.
God, you were the same guy that was doing the ceremony the other day, and now you're saying this," you know. And so I've always run into that, as you know. But it's, I mean, really, ultimately, it's stereotyping, and it's when people, because we make that little image of the other people above and behind our right ear, and then when we're imagining hypothetical conversations with them, that's who we're communing with, and so when the person in front of us doesn't match the image of them that we have above and behind the right ear, change the image, you know. Don't for me to like match this. And the problem is, you know, a codependent person will say, oh, I'm sorry, I'll be more like your expectation of what you think I should be based on your stupid surface expectations, you know. Right. And that's something to
that doesn't help
of.
Anybody.
Yeah.
No.
But it's a step towards something, you know, a few more folds in the brain, and you'll go, you know what, I'm going to stop doing that. Time and experience and lessons and all that good stuff.
And it's a lot of good stuff. I mean, you know, if it isn't this life, it'll be another one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking, sorry, it was a random left turn, but the mane of a lion and the mustache of the 70s swinger dude.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
golden-
I also, the mustache is kind of like a virility sort of, you know, symbol, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off there a little bit.
No, it was an incomplete thought. It was just
You should do one for Movember where he has no mustache.
That'd be weird. Golden stash without
no shave November, or, you know, the one where you shave it off and then all of a sudden it's bigger, you know.
Or like in support of something rather.
Yeah. You know, this might be a little bit weird, Frater, but I was curious to enhance the background on this character, which you said you kind of are loose with anyways, but as a Mason, is there anything you want to ask me that might help reflect back on Golden?
All right, no, totally. I mean, one, do you find offense, I guess, me being like not a Mason and like creating this character, and you know, like I hope I'm not offending you. Basically, I mean, it's all in good fun. So I think you.
Yeah, it doesn't offend me at all.
Okay.
No.
I mean, Masonry to me, it seems like, you know, there's obviously a lot of stuff in it, but it's a you know, it's almost Rotarian where you just have a lot of spaghetti dinners, and I was a Boy Scout, so I can kind of relate to that.
That's a big part of it, actually.
Yeah, a lot of spaghetti dinners.
Well, what I see is there's this kind of almost like cinematic conspiracy, not on the negative side, but this kind of imaginary idea about Masons, which is very attractive. It's one of the things that got me into it, and I think
I'm sure.
You know, there's no reason to spoil that. You know, I think if you look at the reality of some of it, it can actually spoil that a little bit. But I think just the surface idea that, you know, this guy is the ladies' man, and so of course he's a 33rd degree and all that, because, you know, why wouldn't he be?
He's very exalted. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. And I think that's actually it's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, and I hope I'm making Masons laugh rather than being like, "What the fuck is this dude doing?" To our tradition.
Yeah, you know, it would be cool to do one of him in a tuxedo.
I probably, yeah, consider it done. How long have you been a Mason?
This year marks 10 years for me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So what is a Master Mason?
A Master Mason is a full-fledged member. So if you think of like those who are familiar with the Golden Dawn system, for example, if you have the idea of a probationer, somebody who is interested, and you're kind of filling each other out, or you're in the process of becoming a member. That's kind of how Masonry divides it up, is since it goes back to the stonemason guilds, where you would have a master, which is somebody who knows the craft, and then somebody would come to them and say, I want to learn this. Well, they're not a master until they actually learn it. So the idea is that when you become a master mason, you're a full mason. You know, hopefully, what it is to know.
So like a hierophant.
Well, that's more a past master or a master of the lodge. But you're a full member. So, yeah, again, so
a
that
5
terminology.
= 6 or something. Maybe a portal member.
Yeah, maybe portal member would be the closest thing. You're actually on the path. Well, maybe even just call it a zealotor. You're on the tree. Before, you weren't even on the tree. You weren't technically, outer order member. I guess that doesn't really help people that don't know Golden Dawn. But yeah, that's the idea.
Well, I'm just wondering, because that's part of Goldenstash's identity, is that he's a master mason. So I was just wondering what that means.
Ooh. Also, to go back, I mentioned this a while ago, to go back to the Goldenstash numerology and stuff, GS, which is on his pendant, in the, the numerology I was using, it equals 26, which
cool.
is the number, obviously, of the, amount of letters in the English alphabet, and then as well as the middle pillar.
And Yod He Vav He.
And Adonai.
And Yod He Vav He, yeah, and many other things, I'm sure.
That's something else. 26.
26, yeah, definitely Yod He Vav He, which is is the G in Masonry, but the G also related to Gimel, the number 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool. That's interesting.
And twice 13.
And twice 13, yes.
What a trip.
Yeah, I often wonder if this is just how the brain works. If it's like doing all these calculations in the background, and it's like, well, you said 26, so I'll hear this thing,
Now the one thing that occurred to me is just the interesting, like the 3 things. He's rich, he's a master mason, and he's a swinger. So
the swinger thing I haven't developed as much.
Or he's a ladies' man.
He's just like a disco-y sort of look. Yeah, he's always
got a different girl in each depiction.
But that's the thing that I don't take a dogmatic doctrinal stance towards it, and I've had actually a lot of gay friends be like, "Oh, this guy looks like he could be like a gay dude, actually."
Right.
And I'm like, great, yeah, whatever you want to make of him.
Yeah. Huh.
So it's not golden. It's never mind.
And I've made that joke golden showers many a time. Don't get me wrong.
No, I was thinking like Dirty Sanchez, but I didn't want to go there. Now it's too late.
But I was just thinking, if someone's a rich kid, like when I imagine a rich blonde kid who likes the ladies, I don't imagine him going to the local Mason Hall and saying, I want to be a serious member.
Well, that's just, you're right. I mean, that's just the absurdness of it all, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, unless there's a family history, unless we're talking about like a different century. I mean, and this is something I need to develop, but it was like, he's not the original rich Goldenstash member. His great grandpa
from a lineage.
Yeah. If you look at his mantle, there's probably like a version of him for each generation. So there's like a
right.
Yeah. Huh. But people say it's really just him. Like Marie Laveau has a granddaughter that runs Marie Laveau's House of Voodoo, and people say, no, that's her. She does a youth spell every 50 years.
I don't doubt it.
Could be.
I've seen weirder things in society.
Is there anything that, as a Mason, pops into mind as something you'd want to pass along for the character development?
This is totally up to you because it's your art. Looking at it, I'm kind of visualizing he's in a tuxedo and he's doing some kind of thing with his hands that isn't actually a real Masonic, sign of recognition, but it's kind of in the same vein of what he represents. And, I don't know, something weird with his hands where it's like, is that a Masonic thing? I don't know.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll have to go through my book. Well, I mean,
Well, take it or leave it,
No, I will take that up as a good.
I think Ben
thing to
Mackey
think
should
about.
do like Goldenstash going through the 32 degrees of masonry one at a time.
That would be amazing. Actually, yeah.
I know, wouldn't it?
I'm ignorant, so I don't.
Well, I mean, I imagine, I know from a Golden Dawn perspective, but there's the 32 paths of wisdom from the Sefer Yetzirah, and then there's the way they're depicted on the Tree of Life by Luria, Isaac Luria, Itzhak, and
Right.
then there's the Tree of Life as depicted by Athanasius Kircher, the German Jesuit, which is the one that's where more along the Masonry and Golden Dawn type lines, and so that's where we have the 22 major arcana of the tarot. So if you imagine, for example, Goldenstash, that'd be an easy way to tie it into pop culture, is if Goldenstash is pathworking the Tree of Life using the Rider-Waite, and he's interacting with all the characters in the Rider-Waite deck.
That's another thing that I need to do at some point is make my own tarot deck. But that.
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah.
Don't we all?
Oh yeah.
Don't we all? I mean.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good Esoterinerd thing to aspire to. That and knowing how to play Enochian chess. I need to work on that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Esoterinerd podcast.
Oh man, it's an honor.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I look forward to seeing your art. When I'm in Boston next. I haven't been there.
I will definitely keep you attuned.
Awesome. Oh,
Nice
and how people can find you on Instagram, right?
That's my one crossover to the world of the internet right now. Yeah.
And what's your Instagram at?
It's Goldenstash, like
straight
phonetically
Goldenstash.
spelled. It's not spelled like mustache. It's Stash.
Sweet. And I'm on Instagram as VHFratterBT.
Yeah.
So
Great.
Sounds good. Cool.
Well, good talking to you guys. I wish you the best.
Wish you the best
You as
too.
well.
Look forward to seeing seeing how the future of this progresses and unfolds.
Yeah. No, I'm sure we'll talk again.
Yeah, certainly. Cool. Have a good night, brother.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Goldenstash, for coming on the Esoterinerd podcast tonight. And thank you, Drew, for being co-host on short notice. Special thanks to Susumu Ueda and the monks at Jofuku Inn Temple for this music. Special thanks to Tangerine Dream. To Identical Twins Camille and Kennerly for the harp intro and outro to the interviews. And most importantly, thank you to you, the Esoterinerd listening to this podcast.
By the authority vested in me by the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge, I hereby dedicate all these working tools to the glory of the Most High, and to the service of this lodge. May all those use these tools correctly demonstrate the skills of our craft and exemplify its moral character. Amen. So mote it be. With gratitude to our Master we bend. All glory to the Most High. Brother Chaplain, you will pronounce the benediction.
Almighty and eternal being, the glorious architect and ruler of the universe, may all that we have said and done here be acceptable in your sight. Give us the skill and perseverance to apply these tools to our morals, that brotherly love, relief, and truth may be the hallmarks of our work, to the glory of your name.
Good night.